morning. My name is Kyshia Woods. I'm a case manager with Deblin Health Concepts and Associates. I'm a patient navigator. I also do discharge planning, and I see clients in inpatient psychiatric and for discharge planning. And I have the opportunity to interview our therapists for Black History Month. Right now, we're speaking with Zsa Zsa Jenkins. Thank you for your service that you provide to our clients at Deblin Health Concepts. However, we know that there is so much more to you as a person and as a professional. And so we would like to, our company would like to know a little bit more about you, your background, how that pertains to Black History Month, and just being a Black individual in the mental health field. And so I thank you for, being able to meet with us, being with me today. And so the first question is, can you give us your degree and your licensure level?
Sure. Let me just say I'm a graduate and undergraduate in sociology and psychology from University of Denver. And then I went on to Atlanta University, which is now known as Clark Atlanta University, HBCU. And I received my MSW, and I was able to go on from there and get an ACSW, which is Academy of Certified Social Workers, and because there was no licensing at the time I came out. And then later in Texas, I received my LCSW licensing. And so here I am. Been a social worker all these years.
Awesome. And what year was that? Like, when did you start?
Oh, yeah. I graduated from Atlanta University, like I said, which is now Clark Atlanta, in 1975. Okay. And there may have been maybe one or two states in the union, if anybody, that had licensing. So you had to work 2 years MSW supervised from someone with the advanced clinical type of the ACSW and the Academy of Certified Social Worker. And then you could take the test and become an ACSW. So I still have the ACSW because you never lose that. And then only later, I think 84, 85, I'm looking, Texas got the licensing in. And so I came from having the ACSW to being able to get the license in Texas.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. What made you choose the degree path career and have other jobs in the field?
Thank you for asking, because I came from a long line of people. You might see some of them over on the left, ancestors who were into helping others, very rural people who always believed in helping others, sharing. I learned that in my family. And I just want to throw in there, my parents are still alive. They're 94, 99. And I just learned that from them. And I wanted to go in a helping profession. I originally wanted to be a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. And I'm going to tell you, I looked at the length of time in school and I said, oh, no way. And I looked up the other career choices, and social work came up, and I did a lot of research on it. I was actually in high school and we were looking at careers. And I thought, oh, this one sounds great, because you go get your master's degree in that. So that was the choice, that I wanted to be a helping professional, but I did not want to go as long as the clinical psychologists or the psychiatrists had to go. And that's where I landed up here, and I love what I do, and that's where I've stayed. And I ended up, again, like I said, I got my MSW in 1975. So I never strayed from what I wanted to do in high school. And I did volunteer work when I was in high school, like a candy striper. I don't know if people know my age. And I love doing that. I also volunteered for the symphony. So I enjoyed doing things that were volunteer. And my church encouraged that. My pastor was one who took us to different places and let us see how other people were living. And so I did get that through my community where I was raised in Oklahoma City, on the east side of Oklahoma City.
Awesome. Now let's go back a minute. I heard volunteer at the symphony. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? That sounds really awesome and unique.
Yeah, I was in orchestra and band in high school, all the way from junior high through high school. I played flute and violin. So they asked for the Oklahoma City Symphony, had a group called Symphony High Notes for young people to come and usher people. And in return, you had to go to other things. Like at that time, it was Chaka Khan, Lou Ross, That tells you something again. And you got in free if you would come and usher for them. And so I was a symphony high note with Oklahoma City, uh, and got some great opportunities. And I love classical. I love all kind of music because I know that's in my question today. I am also a musician, have been for years, and so that's another one of those careers that I at what do they call your advocation? I think they want to call it. I've always been a musician and taught music. Even while I was a professional social worker, I had a music studio in my home in the evenings. Yeah, for about 12 years, taught music students.
Well, that kind of segues into the next question. It says, have you experienced discrimination or any challenges in your own Black history?
Sure. Yes. My challenge was my very first job after grad school because going to Atlanta University, I had great support. I had a great support there. I mean, it's like I said, it's one of the historical Black universities. And so the support was great. But when I got my first job in Savannah with Family Service Association through the United Way, I was hired under affirmative action. And that created a problem for one of my coworkers in particular, which was an office manager, not my professional staff. I was the only Black person working with them as a social worker, and I found my boss was just incredibly kind, and so were my other three coworkers who were white. But the office manager was old school and from an old line Georgia family. I lived in Savannah, Georgia, and she was very open, letting me know that I was not the most qualified hire for that job. I was coming right out of school, and they were recruiting, trying to get Black social workers at the time to come to the United Way agencies. And so I actually got recruited standing in the hallway at Atlanta University, and I was asked, "Hey, Zsa Zsa, you got a job yet?" School had just had graduated, and I was picking up some papers, and I told the office person at that time when I picked up my papers, "No, I'm going to Bermuda and hang out with a friend that graduated with me." She said, "Well, I want you to talk to someone." And I didn't even pay attention. And I came back and she says, "They're waiting to hear from you in Savannah." And I interviewed and I ended up getting the job. And again, I'm just being very open. It was affirmative action because they had to hire someone African American. They had only one professional before, a military wife that stayed very briefly and went back to New York where she was from. And so that was it. And I was told you were not the most qualified, but not by the staff I worked with. It was by the paraprofessional person, not by the professional people. So I want to make that clear. And it was a challenge. And my boss at that time, like I said, a very good person that put me through a lot of different things that I could go to and learn things. I mean, all kinds of neat workshops. He had to call her and talk to her. And I remember her coming out crying. But I tell you what, I never had another problem from her. She would just say rude things to me and do rude things. And she set up your appointments and made the clientele and all those. But she told me you were not the most qualified. There were other people more qualified. I mean, she was direct. And she said the most rude thing to me. And that's when I went to him and I was crying. She said, "My daddy was a Ku Klux Klan." And that's when people stayed in their place. She actually said that, and the other workers were so embarrassed. She said that in front of them, and people knew how to stay in their place. She didn't use any slur words. She just said, and people knew how to stay in their place. And I did cry and go to him, and he was just appalled that she would do that. And that was it. No more problems from her when he had that conversation with her.
I think it's a great thing that you trusted the person enough to be able to go above her head and say, "Hey, you know what? This is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling, X, Y, and Z."
Excellent boss, and just excellent, and sent me to workshops. And after your 2 years, and same thing now, there's so many hours, 2 years under his supervision, I could go and take the ACSW. Had to go from Savannah to Atlanta, and they paid for it and everything. And everybody was waiting to see if I was going to pass that test, and it was hard. A lot of stuff I didn't have anything to know. I just kind of used common sense, I think. But I did pass it the first time around, and when I came back, we had a big celebration, and I actually became that first Black social worker in Savannah with that ACSW. Because, like I said, there was a lady came before me on the job, a military wife, had something out of New York, and She actually only stayed 2 or 3 months. But after that, that was it. I was the only Black social worker at that time with ACSW. And the others primarily worked at places like Child Protective Service, which they called it something child welfare at that time. But no one worked in the fields that provided clinical services there. So that was through United Way, Family Service Association of Savannah, Georgia. And I was there 4 years before I moved to Texas.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. What has been the most rewarding part of your life thus far?
Oh, gosh, just seeing people transform in their lives because of working with them. And like I said, my whole goal was to be in a helping profession and to see people who maybe if they had not come through my path, like I said, I once read, it's not who you meet, but it's who meets you. And seeing people who transform and could go on and help someone else. So I always like the fact of, hey, you're now feeling healthier and better about what you're doing, and you're going to help someone else. I stress that with clients anytime, that it shouldn't just be stopping with me and you and what happened. Pass it on to someone in some type of way, whether it's your family, being nice or kind to them, or young people who I've tried to mentor in a career to say, if I did this and made it through all of that and tears in Savannah, Georgia, you can do it. You can do it. So transformation of lives. That's just so wonderful. And that's why I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it. I still love what I do. Uh-oh. I didn't cut you off, did I? Don't hear you right.
No, that's just me. What else can you tell us? No, I apologize. I done mute. What else can you tell us about you that makes you who you are and makes you unique?
What do I think that makes me unique? Well, you know what? I don't know if I'm so unique. I just think there are folks like us that your calling. You know your calling. I'm a spiritual person for whatever different people's spiritual paths. Mine, like I said, come from my early Christian background with my family, and I just felt very early that this was what I was supposed to do. So I did it. I did not go into anything else. I just felt early that this is what I was supposed to do. So I don't know if that makes me so unique, but I didn't have to try different things first. It was just like, boom, I'm going to school. I went straight from undergrad to grad school, and I knew when I had to get that ACSW so I could have that clinical thing, because at the time I didn't know Black social workers that were doing clinical. Even my friends I graduated from grad school, they went into other agencies. They weren't doing like therapy types of things. So very early. And I think that part, and the other part I thought maybe is unique about me is people say, how have you done this so long? People go crazy, they get stressed. I said, because I have my avocation music. I am a trained musician, actually started music at 8 and into my first year in college. And I take courses from now and then. And even over the last 20 years, I've gone back to take some courses. I've taught music. I play for church. I play for weddings. I play with groups. Music keeps me grounded and gives me that, what I would say, the escape you need to let go of some of the things I've heard from people. I mean, because I can't think of too many things I haven't heard. I mean, very harsh things that people have had to go through and endure in their life. And just, man, I think you have to have some healthy coping strategies. And I do feel that I'm maybe one of the people I know in my field that have stayed and not feel bitter or not feel harsh or anything, because my music is just very important to me. I keep music on. I'm playing music all the time. I have 2 keyboards here, several instruments I've collected from working overseas as a social worker with the military for 15 years in Europe.
Okay.
So I collected all kinds of instruments from different countries that I went to. So if you come to my place, you're going to get music.
Awesome.
You don't like music, don't come to my place, because I love my music. And I do, like I said, I do play now, even professionally.
Awesome. So what countries have you been to, like, and actually, and what was your experience as an African-American professional in other countries doing, social work? That's a really great.
Sure. Yeah, I like talking
unique.
about them because
that's unique.
Yeah, well, I went over military, something like 97 or something like that. I saw an ad in the social work journal, and I responded to it, and they were looking for social workers to work with the military. I didn't know the military had social workers, by the way. You didn't have to be in the military; they had contracts, and so I actually applied and was hired, not because I had had experience overseas, but because I had worked with a diversity of all kinds of problems. They liked that. And I was sent to Italy first, Naples, Italy. I worked for the Navy there. And
Mm-hmm.
again, doing the same kinds of things with working with families with problems. They call it family advocacy with the military program. And I also was a victim advocate contract that I also worked on with them, the Navy. And then I lived in Germany. I came back for a few months and was recruited to come back to Germany, come to Europe. And so I worked in Germany, and there I stayed for almost about 11 years in Germany. And I do like to mention that both of those contracts I went on were minority contracts. And the second one, the longest I stayed on, again, through the Choctaw Nation. And the first one was through African American couple that out of the Virginia area that had contracts that you could get to provide mental health services. They had a really big contract. So I contracted and I was able to stay until, gosh, I came back in 2012 to the US.
Okay.
And again, I got to visit a lot of countries. I got to do workshops that I would never have been able to go to. Like, for example, last country place I went, 2012, March, I went to a psychotherapy, Jung therapy, if you're in the Jung psychotherapy dream conference in Ireland. And that was, again, through that contract. I was able to go to Venice one time on a contract and do genogram studies and just so many things that I
Yeah.
was able to do because I was working on that military contract
Yeah.
overseas that I don't think I would have ever done. And I was always received well. This is what I will tell you. When I went to those contracts, uh, assignments that many times I was only African American, not because they didn't have others on our contract, but we were so scattered throughout Europe that you might go to a conference and you're the only, not only an African American, but the only American, like the one I went to in Venice on genograms, and the one that I went to on Jung, Alfred Jung, the psychotherapy, the Dream Conference. There were no other African Americans there in Ireland at that conference, and people were always receptive. I, I can honestly say that they were so receptive and always had lots of questions, and I can remember going to Egypt, to Cairo. And, these are people of color like me. And they were still asking me things like, how do they treat you in the US? They were
Yeah.
so curious and asking me, how are you treated? And how do you like it? And what's it like there? So I still found it kind of, okay, they know what they see on TV. But at the same time, I found that people were curious. I never got the, oh,
Mm-hmm.
here's a Black person kind of the need. I never received that, Kyshia. It was always curiosity. Tell me about
Yeah.
your experience in America. And particularly if they had not been to America, which, by the way, believe it or not, there are a lot of people I met in the professional realm in Europe. They had no desire to come to the U.S. They're doing good in their careers, particularly when I went to the two conferences where I met with some of the people from Ireland, very good psychotherapists, people I met, and they had not ever been to the U.S. for anything. They didn't have that. We always think everybody
Yeah.
want to come.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't that. They were satisfied with their European. Maybe they had been somewhere exotic, like Europe or Russia. And I also have gone to Russia before. Um, St. Petersburg and Moscow, same thing. I walked in a place by myself just to hear jazz while when we had our free time. It was an educational tour um, in 2003, and just for 2 weeks. And I went by myself while everybody took a break, and I had no problems. I walked in and they were playing jazz at a nice big hotel, and everybody looked and I smiled because they were so good and clapped and gave a tip. I didn't have anybody
Yeah.
bother, but I didn't see any Black folks here in Russia either on the street. I saw one African guy that came over and talked. So I have to tell you that I'm kind of like, I know they must have Black people here, somewhere, but I didn't see it on the street when I was there. That the 2 weeks I was in Russia. I understand there have quite a bit of African population now, but 2003, I didn't see hardly anybody.
Awesome.
But no one mistreated me. I will tell you that no one talked rude or treated me in any way, but with respect.
Awesome.
Very respectful.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that as well. When you go,
I didn't have those. Yeah, when I traveled, I was respectful, not trying to be the know-it-all American, but I tried to learn a little bit of language. If it was nothing but thank you, like when I went to Greece, Afghanistan, something like that, just to let you know I know a little bit or something, and I appreciate that you have a different culture. And it would open the door, and people just went out of their way. They went out of their way. So I did love the European experience, thanks to working under, military contracts, and I worked for all branches. I was able to do all branches of the military.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, in the spirit of Black history, would you share details about your ancestors on your photos? Would that be okay?
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
I'm very
I think it's
involved
awesome.
in that. In fact, I'm a part of a group and I just got into that in Oklahoma City recently. They are called Choctaw Freedmen's, and there are Black individuals that are trying to get the Choctaw Nation to recognize that they had slaves. And we know the 5 civilized tribes did, and most of them now have made some kind of arrangement where they included them in the membership and their ancestors. So those that you see on the here, they're actually in my family. Now I hear all these people going on talking about they have this and that, but actually this one, he is on. This is my mom's grandfather. He is on the road. You have to be on the Dawes Hawken Road. He's on the road. It says 1/8 Cherokee. So I never claimed no Cherokee and I think 1/8 doesn't make me. So you don't hear me going around, I'm going Cherokee or Choctaw. But I always thought we were Choctaw Freedmen. I actually found most of my relatives are not. They had 1/8. They were in the Oklahoma Territory. And then the other two, that's my great grandfather, my dad's dad, right from good old Texas, Matagorda County, and then my grandmother up here from
we can't see her.
You can't see her?
No, we can. Okay, yes, we can see her now.
You can't see her mother up above. She's way at the top, who was a midwife in Louisiana. So most of my family on paternal people tend to be Texas and Louisiana. My maternal people, my mom's people, Oklahoma for generations. So they're the ones that made the Dawes Road. If you're in anybody trying to say I got some Indian background, I don't go around saying it because it says 1/8, and he's my great grandfather. So obviously, if he had 1/8, I'm not going to go around hollering that I'm Cherokee. But I did find them on there. I told Mom, your sister made it, but you didn't make it because you weren't born in the Indian Territory at that time. So it's a good history. If anybody who knows what I'm talking about, read about it, and you'll see the Choctaw Freedmen's. Like I said, we have a group out of Oklahoma City that are really present the history. They give you a website you can go to and see if any relatives, great grandparents or grandparents are on that road, and it gives you their number and everything. So lo and behold, I was always told we were part of the Choctaw Freedmen's, slaves that had Indians. So I told Mom, none of your relatives on that Choctaw Road want to buy marriages on there, but your blood relative is on the Cherokee Road, Mom. And I mentioned Sam Cobb. I mentioned different names to her, and she's like, yeah. I said, and it says 1/8, and that somebody was an infant at the time, and blah, 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 blah. So those who want to know about that, 5 civilized tribes, how they relate to you as an African American when you hear, oh, God, Indian, all that Indian. No, you really want to go on the Dawes Road, and you can look up, put in the name and anything, and see if you can find that ancestor on there. And they will tell you whether they were freedmen, meaning they were a slave owned by Indians. A lot of people, I didn't know Indians had slaves. I said, yeah, 5 civilized tribes, they brought their slaves with them. They were able to bring the slaves with them. And some of the things that people don't know about African American history, particularly as an Oklahoman, but many of the ones in Oklahoma know this very well. If you're in African American and Oklahoma heritage and your family has been there several generations, you will understand that, that it wasn't so much always intermarrying. There was some, but we were slaves to them also.
Right. So, well, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. All right. Well, this concludes our interview. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I enjoyed everything I've learned about you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me. I like to talk. I love people, and my hope and my prayer is that I continue to be a part of solutions of this world, you know, and not become somebody's problem. I want to be a part of solutions. That's my motto. Let me be a part of
Right
solutions.
on. Right on. Awesome.
Thank you for having me and interviewing me.
Thank you. Bye.